to non-conceptual awareness. It is equivalent in key ways to Vipassana meditation, insight meditation, as well as to Zazen. And here's the critical healing factor. It is when you are aware, when you are visited by a maladjusted schema, a relaxation response changes which is, by the way, an adaptive coping response. Why is it adaptive? When we relax, we are not being irresponsibly indifferent to the presence of a disturbance. We are not being irresponsibly indifferent or callously indifferent. We are not in denial. What we are doing is the same thing that you are doing right now about the fact you're going to go eat in a little while. Well, you need to eat. Well, are you worried about that? No, you're not worried about that. You are confident that you will go and eat in a while. Similarly, when you have a problem that you can detect, the relaxation response is in fact trusting that nature is operative and will address that issue. This is not to say that we do not use scenarios, that we stop using scenarios. This is not an either-or approach. However, we must interrupt our anxiety attacks, and we need to do it trusting that our operation of mind is beneficial. People have difficulty stopping worry. Why? Because of the idea that it is irresponsible, that it must be addressed. Or anger. Anger too. Unrighteousness. It needs to be addressed. Well, it also needs to be acted upon by a greater agency than our own self-conception. Life itself needs to be working with us in solving our problems. And this is where mindfulness comes in. This is where the evaluation also is so critical. Mindfulness-based anxiety reduction provides a schema assessment for you. So you identify core issues, then you identify also maladjusted coping modes that attach to these issues and produce your complex. Get the idea, two things coming together. For example, trying to look good when you have a defectiveness schema. Trying to keep it simple for you. So you get the idea. You have a sense of being defective. You decide that you want to be a hero. Get the idea? One seems to be, the desire to become heroic looks like a good therapy. So this will treat the problem. And in fact, it is the problem. So we need to let go of attempting to be heroic. Why? Because it's a fear-driven condition. And you may be on your way to having a social anxiety. Get that idea? Well, it's the same way about emotional deprivation. It's the same thing about being victimized. It's the same way about being deserted. We must have a relaxation response to our coping mechanisms. Yes, for example, a difficult one is the abandonment schema. What happens to us in abandonment schema? You can, for example, one way of doing it is become an over-controller. So you can end up with a check-off list of how your significant other should behave, what they need to do. It's, for example, hypersensitivity to remembering an anniversary or a birthday. That type of consideration can produce outrage in a person with a maladjusted abandonment schema. It's possible. It can produce a very different response also with for a person where they become completely indifferent, never expecting anyone to care for them and to be considerate and generous in that fashion. So it can be complicated. However, we don't need to figure it out. We need to, as Edmund Jacobson had suggested, we must relax completely. When we are visited by the insecurity, we must identify our insecurities and then have this relaxation response. Does it take some training? Does it take some type of revelation and awakening? I'm afraid it does. You'll not know to do this without trainers like myself, without therapists, without people who are conscious of this type of mechanism. And of course, if you are a client or a person that is working on reducing your anxiety, you too must enter this revelation just like other therapists, just like mystical teachers, just like awakened people. It's the same thing. We must begin to awaken to the presence of the mind. Very famous New Thought innovator Ernest Holmes mentioned once that the mind is the greatest discovery. And indeed, it is a thing. It can be an object, and we can work with it. So I have been talking about recruiting meditation to recover from your emotional wounds. And that requires an assessment. You have to know how to apply it. Why? When we sit, we are visited by our emotional wounds. So what we do is when the emotional wound is activated, we have an anxiety response, then the narrative unfolds in your mind. You then create a scenario. Scenarios, yes, scenarios. These are fantasies that come across the mind. These are what we work on. In other words, we assess scenarios. We observe our mind, how by the practice of meditation we can now become observant of our automatic thoughts, automatic ideas come and go. Here's the thing that you need to know, and that I believe is very critical for you to understand. When you are visited by a scenario driven by a maladjusted schema, it influences the subconscious and changes reality. Does not only change tensions in your body, does not only change emotions, does not only change thoughts, philosophy, it changes reality. Okay? Let me say it simply. It changes luck. Put it in a kind of Chinese context. I am pointing. It changes reality, the subject-object relationship. Why? There is no objective field without the subjective field. The field of existence is a field of potentiality, and it becomes concretized by duality, by the conscious perceiver. In other words, you look and you make real. Is it you doing it? It's certainly beyond us. It is the nature of existence. It appears that existence and or time, space, and eternity are co-eternal, and that's a lot to chew on. So again, the book is Mindfulness Based Anxiety Reduction. It provides a schema assessment. I have a very lengthy one there where you can work on getting representations of your core issues and the maladjusted coping modes that can attach to them. And then there's training in both breath work, very critical as a doorway to non-conceptual awareness. When even in non-conceptual awareness, the breath, body, being aware of the body, sustains our ability to refrain from constant judging and constantly getting these scenarios coming up in our minds. Now, the relationship between imagination and awareness is not antagonistic. In other words, we do indeed withdraw from imaginings. But the process keeps going on, and we return. So we are not suggesting that the reduction of judgment, where we, for example, in Zazen, Zazen meditation is non-conceptual awareness. We follow the breath. Thoughts do come and go, but we're letting them go. We're in a constant. This is a very critical self-monitoring process. Now, during that period of time, there's a lot of healing that can go on. Why? Because we're responding differently to the visitations of our emotional wounds. Our maladjusted schemas are visiting us. They are getting triggered by simple associations. What we do then is we respond to them differently, and at the subconscious level, it's generating a different reality. Get that idea? In the field of potential, you are generating a different reality. How the worldview is changing, the self-concept is changing, the value system is changing. In other words, you're getting an alarm going off, and you are, in a sense, dismissing it, not in an irresponsible fashion, but in a collaborative fashion, collaborating with the universe, collaborating with nature itself, who's doing the actual job. And it's trust, it's faith, no doubt about it. Life works. We have to begin to trust the Force, as they say in Star Wars. Trust the Force, Luke. I hope that this conversation has been helpful. It's been about the recruitment of meditation and your recovery. I am suggesting to you that self-monitoring is an important process that will help you to utilize this wonderful training of meditation to heal your emotional wounds. Get a good self-evaluation, a good assessment, understand what is visiting you. These are not actual events that are frustrating and or disappointing. These are scenarios that you are interrupting. That's how it's done. That's the liberation process. A great privilege to be speaking with you. I encourage you to tune in again, maintain the practice, and indeed meditate. Use meditation and its equivalents all the time. Good meditative training will teach you a way of placing your consciousness in a way that you can utilize the skill throughout your day intermittently, and that's how it occurs, intermittently. You are not entering some type of ideal dissociative condition. Get the idea? One is not competing with the other. You are practicing letting go. Best of luck to you. Let's meet again soon. Thank you for tuning in.